Just Like Us, for LGBT young people.
Hi, Sarah.
Hi, James.
We have started this recording again because we were too giggly the first time, so we're going to be professional this time around. What have you been up to for the last month?
I'm in Edinburgh right now. I've met up with two of my friends from Twitter, which if you go back and listen to our episode about online communities, you can hear me talk about them. Yeah, so that's been really fun. We went to a chocolate shop yesterday. It was amazing. What about you, James?
I've been doing I was in New York for a bit. It's my first time in America.
I forgot about that. Jet setter.
I went to Stonewall. I made a bit of a pilgrimage. And now I'm in France. It's a whole world jet-setting
Getting those
situation.
frequent flyer miles. What are we talking about this month, James?
We are talking about bisexuality.
Yay! It's because it's Bisexual Awareness Month this month, and also there's Bisexual Visibility Day on the 23rd of September.
And we'll talk about bisexual visibility a bit later.
You're listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people.
So we thought we might start off, if anyone isn't aware, with a definition of bisexuality. So you had some interesting thoughts about this.
Yeah, so the way I kind of look at it, I think gay, straight and bi are kind of the three main sexualities that everyone always knows. But if we look at just bisexuality first, it's kind of the official definition. I say that in inverted commas, but like the official definition is someone who's attracted to more than one gender, or like genders that are like the same as theirs and different. But you can have personal definitions, which I think can fall into different categories, or like some people I know just say that gender isn't a limiting factor when it comes to them being with someone, and it can kind of be that simple. And then I think another word that another term that comes up a lot when you talk about bisexuality is also pansexuality, which I think is maybe less well known. But the general, I know some like pan people, and like they tend to say that they're attracted to people regardless of gender. So it's kind of like what I said before about how gender just isn't a limiting factor.
Yeah. So we were going to also mention a little bit about biphobia and how it can kind of fall in line with and differ from homophobia, kind of interplays with all those sort of other...
Yeah. No, I think it's interesting because biphobia can be such a unique experience because unfortunately it can come from within the LGBT community as well as outside of it, just because some people don't really understand how you can be attracted to men and women or like other genders at the same time.
Yeah. And people often consider bisexuality, people might think it's like a stepping stone to being, fully gay in inverted commas. There's a 2013 study that I found that said 28% of bisexual people in the USA were out as LGBT to any of their friends and family versus 77% of gay men and 71% of lesbians. Which is just kind of like, it's an interesting point. When you're bisexual, for some people, it's easier to like be able to fit in with sort of heterosexual society. And so it's easier for many bisexual people to kind of stay in the closet because there's that kind of way of not having to do the whole thing of coming out.
You're listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people.
God knows there's a lot of people in the world who are convinced that, being gay is a choice or whatever, but it's surprising how many people amongst even supposedly sort of liberal society think being bisexual is made up, even if they already agree that gay people exist and lesbians exist. So yeah, there's still that kind of enduring biphobia.
Yeah.
Which doesn't get as much publicity because of a lack of bi visibility. So we have some examples of bi visibility for this Bi Visibility Month Day. Do you want to talk about some of them?
Yeah, so I think like in terms of representation, in terms of bi visibility, that can be really hard because I remember when I was younger watching shows, say like Orange is the New Black, where you had characters like Piper Chapman who has had relationships with men and women that were both like very significant to her, but the word bisexual was never used. But then so that was really great when in Brooklyn Nine-Nine you had Rosa Diaz who came out as bisexual, and she was very unapologetic about it to her parents. And the episode was great because it dealt with a lot of different aspects of biphobia or like reactions that you could get that could be quite biphobic. And I think it dealt with like the unique struggle of like coming out as bi, I think, because in terms of like a lot of people are like, oh, well, I'm okay with you being bi because you'll end up, if you're a cis woman, like you'll end up with a man or something. So like it's fine. Yeah. So to have like Rosa Diaz like so unequivocally say like, this isn't a phase, I might end up with a man, I might end up with a woman, you're going to have to deal with either situation. I thought it was like one of the best representations of bisexuality I think I've seen. So it was great.
And in real life, we also have Ryan Russell, who is, did you say the first NFL player
I think he's
ever?
definitely the first one I've heard of to come out as bisexual. So so Ryan Russell he's previously played for like the Dallas Cowboys and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and he wrote a very like powerful essay for ESPN, basically saying about his entire journey with bisexuality and like what it means to him and how he's very like ready to like be out and proud about it, and it's quite like it was quite a huge moment.
Yeah, I remember reading the statement he made, and it was really, I mean, like Rosa, it was very unequivocally like, I'm bisexual, I'm not, you know, just secretly gay, and I'm not just like straight and making it up.
You're listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people.
Last but certainly not least, wouldn't be a JLU podcast if we didn't go to our ambassadors. So we have some stories from Jon Hui and Charlotte, who have very kindly provided some recordings of them talking about their stories growing up bisexual. Let's head off to them.
Hi, I'm Charlotte. I am 21 and I'm currently a student. So I think I was aware from quite a young age that LGBTQ people existed, but I definitely think there was a lack of media representation. I think if there was someone I could relate to, then I'd have probably come out a lot earlier. But unfortunately, this wasn't the case, and I just considered myself to be straight. When I first watched Titanic, I developed an absolutely enormous crush on Leo DiCaprio. I was convinced that we'd get married and then that would just be the end of that. But all of this was before I discovered Girls Aloud when I was about 12. And I became completely obsessed with Cheryl Cole. I thought that she was stunning, but I think the negative comments that I heard in primary school made me hesitant to actually admit that I fancied her quite a lot. In primary school, I'd heard people describe bisexuality as being greedy, and the thought of being criticised for being different to my peers absolutely terrified me. So whenever the thought that I might not be 100% straight crossed my mind, I'd immediately shut it off and convince myself that I could only be attracted to guys. As I went through the first couple of years of secondary school, I became aware of the fact that this sadly was just not going to happen. Then when I was 14, one of my best friends came out as gay, and this altered my perspective on so much. Seeing her come out suddenly made the idea of not being 100% straight okay. I didn't view her as any differently, and neither did the vast majority of other people in our school. She was confident and totally owning her identity, and all of this made the prospect of coming out a lot less scary to me. Despite this, fears of being rejected by my family members for being bi led me to remaining closeted for another couple of years. So I eventually came out to a small group of friends when I was 16, and they've all been so supportive. Now I'd say that pretty much all my friends know, as well as some but not all of my family. On the whole, the response has been great. And going back to what I said about media personalities and role models, it's so encouraging to see that more and more LGBTQ identities than ever are being represented.
You're listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people.
Now we're going to hear from Jon Hui, who's going to talk about their experience growing up bisexual.
When I was 11 years old, I developed a huge crush on a girl. For a long time, I didn't even realize it was a crush. I just thought I really admired her. One day, someone mentioned to us, "Wow, you two are really gay together." So I immediately typed into Google, "What does gay mean?" And then, when I read the definition, I was really shocked. My 11-year-old mind couldn't believe this slander. We were just really close friends. We're nothing like that. And that was my first experience of internalized homophobia. I had been subconsciously influenced my entire life to find homosexuality wrong and unnatural, when in actuality, that couldn't be further from the truth. When my parents watched the news, whenever the topic of LGBT came up, they would wrinkle their faces in disgust and disapproval, and I just took after them. Since I was still attracted to men, I would rush into relationships with guys just to prove, no, I'm not into girls, which is dumb, and led to a lot of pain, and I was still into girls. Eventually, when I turned 16, I finally relented. I gave up and took a good look in the mirror and said, okay, fine, I like girls. And that's when I started dating a woman 11 years older than me. My life promptly fell apart. The relationship quickly turned abusive. I gave in to every single one of her demands. And yet I stayed for 3 years. A lot of people ask me, why didn't I just walk away? One big reason is because I couldn't talk to anyone about it. Because to tell them that I'm in an abusive relationship, I also had to tell them I'm in a relationship with a woman, and I couldn't. So I was trapped. All of this happened because I believed that no one would help me and no one would accept me. But now I realize that none of those things are true. There are so many people out there who will help you. But LGBT plus people, especially young ones, can feel extremely isolated if they haven't found any LGBT plus support groups or communities around them. I managed to get out the relationship because I finally talked to someone about it. When I expected ridicule, she instead showed me support. Everyone here listening to this deserves respect in their relationship, regardless of whether they're straight or gay, whatever. That was when I realized that not everyone's gonna brush me off just because I was dating a woman. And that was when I could cut the toxicity out of my life. The first post was just someone being kind and supportive to me. It just goes to show how important compassion and care is towards others. All in all, after accepting who I am, I'm in a much better place now and proudly bisexual.
You're listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people.
So, thank you very much, Jon Hui and Charlotte. Thank you, Sarah.
I mean, as always. Thank you, James.
Enjoy Edinburgh. I'm very
Thank
jealous.
you.
I'm a fan of the sea. I was there last month we recorded. That's weird. That's a weird switcheroo. I'll see you next month, and hopefully in between.
Have a great month.
See ya.
See you next month. Bye.
Bye.
You've been listening to Just Like Us, the monthly show for LGBT young people. The music was by Twisterium. We come into schools too. Young people, teachers and parents can find us at www.justlikeus.org.